previously looked at the Protestant Reformation, where large groups of people are starting to question the Catholic Church and its teachings. Well, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and in this case, there is what's often called a Catholic or a counter-reformation that will subsequently contribute to the growth of Christianity. Now, the Council of Trent was a series of meetings wherein the Catholic Church attempted to redefine and clarify their positions. Special efforts were undertaken to educate priests and train them to avoid the abuses that had opened up the Catholic Church to the criticisms of the Reformation. Now, most tenets of the faith were reaffirmed. There's one figure with sole authority, that's the Pope. It's the responsibility of priests to be celibate, and the importance of good works and church tradition was seen as important to salvation. And the veneration of saints and relics was also upheld. In the end, this Council of Trent only served to further divide the Catholic and Protestant denominations. All right, so it reformed a little bit, but realistically, not that much. One result of this council, a result of the movement, this Counter-Reformation, was the rise in new religious orders such as the Society of Jesus, also known as the Jesuits. We've seen the Jesuits reach other areas that we focused on, and you can see some of them here. Now, the Jesuits were one of several orders that were developed to address the Protestant challenge to the Catholic faith. So the missionaries were trained in the debating skills that were needed to fend off these challenges. The Jesuits took advantage of the maritime trading routes that we'll see established in our next unit to try and spread the Catholic faith beyond the borders of Europe, thus taking the Counter-Reformation and attempting to make it a global movement. The most famous missionaries are two people that we've already seen. All right, we have Francis Xavier and the man you see down here, Matteo Ricci. Xavier actually helped found the order, and he went to India and notably Japan, where he didn't have as much success converting the Japanese to the faith. Ricci was an Italian who arrived in a Portuguese settlement in China in the late 1500s, and he was the first European to enter the Forbidden City, and he attempted to convert prominent Chinese to the Catholic faith. So these two men that we've already seen are a direct result of the Protestant Reformation, because their order, the Jesuits, formed in opposition to and an attempt to counter these Protestant claims about their faith. Now, a little bit closer to Europe, the Reformation will introduce a religious component to the class and political differences within Europe. For example, violence will occur between majority French Catholics, because France will position themselves as a Catholic nation. There'll be violence between the Catholics and the minority Protestant factions known as Huguenots. And this will occur for about the last 3 decades of the 1500s. 3,000 Huguenots were massacred by Catholic mobs on a single day in 1572, and thousands more were actually killed in the coming weeks. Henry IV finally granted some religious toleration to the Protestants near the end of the decade, although he did it with the intention of a complete return to the Catholic faith. Now, general unrest between Catholic and Lutheran rulers will lead to what became known as the 30 Years' War. This one was actually 30 years, between 1618 and 1648. The new Holy Roman Emperor, and you see the border of the Holy Roman Empire. This new emperor will try to force all of his subjects to convert to Catholicism, which is a direct violation of the Peace of Augsburg. that allowed local lords to choose. Now, Ferdinand II was a member of the House of Habsburg, and the Habsburgs began to gather Catholic allies to fight the Protestant forces. Now, this started in the Holy Roman Empire, but this conflict will eventually involve much of Central Europe. And during the entire conflict, up to 30% of Europe's rural population will die from either famine or disease. So this is definitely going to have a negative spill-out effect. Now, the Peace of Westphalia is going to recognize a permanent division between Catholic and Protestant Germany, and the idea of a single imperial structure is gone. So this religious movement that began with questioning ideas of salvation, questioning church practices, has now had the effect of permanently dividing political realms, at least within Europe. In place of a single imperial structure is the idea of separate nation states that recognize the sovereignty of one another and agree to rules of war and diplomacy. The era of solely religious-inspired warfare in Europe, it's gone. All right, it came to an end. This war's destructive nature will also contribute to the principles behind German unification over 230 years later. So this Protestant Reformation and subsequent Catholic Counter-Reformation will have the interesting side effect of eliminating religion as the sole purpose for conflict on the European continent.